Thank you for being in this space, the chiropractic universe by Dr. David Serio. We are very grateful that you are here.
Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of the Chiropractic Universe with Dr. David Serio. This is obviously an English edition. I'm super grateful today to have some special guests, and I want to thank everyone for sending me questions, sharing my videos, putting likes, and subscribing to my channel. So we have two special guests that I know personally now, and I'm super grateful for them because they are the company of EDL. We know them as the Nervascope company. Personally, I've been using the Nervascope for over 16 years. I didn't at first in practice, and it changed my chiropractic game tremendously. Everyone on my team uses the Nervascope on every visit, checking people. Every single time we check them, we use the Nervascope. So super grateful for their company and for them because it's an integral part of my everyday life and my team's life. So welcome, Don and Gabbi. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Thank you. So Don, you want to remember?
I'm Don Polsky, and my father started EDL back in 1943, and the company was founded on doing repairs on naval ships, actually, during the war. And then he met Dr. Gonstead. I think he was contacted through, I wasn't born then, so this is history that is a little hard for me. But he was contacted, and they discussed the instruments, and we patented the Nervascope because of Clarence Gonstead's interest in it, and we've made it ever since. And then we've gotten into industrial products. We make a large line of metrology products for calibration labs. We sell to all the major national labs around the world, and
deeply rooted in the science
behind
the temperature.
Right. And we've, in particular to the Nervascope, we have tried very hard over the years not to change its function, not to change the way it works. We've tried to improve the internal components, and we've tried to bring science into it. But we don't want to make it a different product. We want it to stay the way it is because it works. And we've tried very hard to do that. In addition, we are very interested in expanding the chiropractic line and making it more functional for everyone. So that's pretty much where EDL is focused. And
I got to go to EDL. I was there in March. I got to tour the lab, check out some of the new products, and there's so much for me. It was great because there's so much more behind it. You don't think as a chiropractor, for example, Gabbi and I were talking about just the moldings, for the Nervascope, and you don't realize the chiropractor how much is behind this. And the tradition, Don was explaining to me just about the meter, where they get them, how they're produced. And the first of all, for me, one of the big things is when I look for an instrument, it's got to have longevity, so you can have a new instrument come out 5 years ago, but how long has that really been proven in the marketplace? So that's number one. And number two, when you see what goes behind this, it's not just, oh, there's some room there where they're making these Nervascopes. No, there's tremendous amount of people working there and on the product. And Gabbi, so tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do there. And
Sure. So I'm Gabrielle Polsky, and I am the production manager here. So I work really closely hand in hand with Don and the sales team. So I'm kind of the go-between. So if you have a technical question or if you have anything like that, the sales team is probably going to go through me to try and rectify the situation. Of course, if we need a little further help, we'll go to Don. But no, we really have been trying to, like he said, keep the same science and just kind of expand on that. So that's been kind of where I've focused my last probably year or so, is working on the new Pro X, which I assume Dr. Serio will talk about in a little bit, but definitely. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't turn the screen on. So there we go.
Yeah, I saw that new digital product. It's great. It's for sale right now. It's beautiful.
Yes, absolutely. We are excited about it. We actually we just launched our new website. We just revamped the whole website. Dr. Serio, I gave you a sneak peek the other day, and go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, the new website's much easier to use. It's much more clear, and it's a great website.
Thank you. And there's a whole area devoted to this. And I just walked in this morning after a 7-hour meeting with Danielle and the marketing team yesterday to the sales team, telling me we had 7 Pro X's sold on the website yesterday. So that was hadn't told Don that yet.
No, I
so
hadn't heard
that was exciting. That was what I walked into this morning. So that was great. So hopefully this new website will really help, and our relationship with you, Dr. Serio, will help. And so we're excited. So.
Yeah, one of the big things, Dr. Gonstead had a phrase. He said, chiropractic always works. It's the application that doesn't work sometimes. So, we don't question the principle, we question the application. So one of the things, it took me many years to get, when we check the spine and we use an instrument, it comes down, in my opinion, to details, minute details. For example, if some air gets in here, you're not going to get a proper reading if you're reading it too fast. So one of the big things that I found as a chiropractor teaching other chiropractors is that, don't question the instrument, question your application. So with that, we formed a relationship, and the first seminar is going to be launched at your place at the EDL headquarters. I'm going to be delivering a seminar on how to use the Nervascope. And Don has seen me use the Nervascope, and we've talked for hours and hours. And so we're going to teach you how to use the Nervascope in a very detailed way so you can get the most use out of this and ultimately help your clients in the maximum way. So Gabby, you want to kind of announce when that is? This is the first announcement of it.
Yes, absolutely. I was just looking for the paper. So we are actually launching this on our Facebook, Instagram, sharing it with Dr. Serio. We'll be doing an e-blast. We'll be sending out brochures actually as well. And on the new website, there's a whole page that's going to be dedicated to the registration of it. But we are March 22nd through the 24th. It's a 3-day seminar. So we are extremely excited that you've agreed to do this with us. And it's something that we've always had to be very limited with what we can tell the doctors. And it always puts us in a tough situation because we're selling this product. And it's not that we don't know how to use it. It's that per certain regulations, we can't tell you how. But it's fantastic to partner with a doctor, Dr. Serio, who can help and can teach and can say, hey, you're doing it wrong. That's why you're not getting correct results. And that's fantastic because then it does help with the reliability and the, it makes sure that it's not the scope's fault, exactly what you just said. Of course, there can be an issue with the scope. I'm not saying the scopes have never had an issue, but that's something that we, of course, address differently. But the first thing we always go to is send us a video. Let us watch your technique. But we've always kind of had to carefully tiptoe around that subject. But now, of course, we're opening it up and we're able to kind of delve in a little deeper. And with the videos you've helped us with, of course, that has been a tremendous help already. And that was only a few months ago.
Yeah, and I'm so passionate as a chiropractor about the Nervascope because it really is one of the tools that has allowed me to go into mastery in chiropractic because, and I went to Sherman College, so I had a great foundation. I had amazing mentors. The Nervascope is one of the tools, though, that allowed me to start understanding the subluxation probably better than anything else, and utilizing it correctly because being in practice, I realized I made a lot of mistakes, that I had great mentors to help me, but also a lot of experience came with this. and looking at other chiropractors and understanding, you know, if you run it just a little too fast, you're going to miss some of the major chronic subluxation. So in this seminar, we're going to go through hands-on. You're going to get tons of hands-on, and you're going to leave that weekend really understanding how to use the Nervascope at its maximum capabilities. And we're going to go through the digital one as well. So Don, I want to ask you a couple of questions here about the history a little bit. So did EDL also have a relationship with Dr. Palmer, or was it just mainly with Dr. Gonstead?
Well, EDL back in the days, we worked with Palmer, but we didn't. Palmer had his own instrument.
Yeah.
What would happen is we used to, and you probably don't know this because these were long before you. I'm not even sure you were practicing when we used to make that instrument. But we used to make an instrument that had internally, you could set the switch to Palmer or Gonstead.
Wow.
So because Palmer's technique was a little different than Gonstead's. And so if you were a practicing Palmer student, you could switch it to Palmer, and the instrument sensitivity was based on that, the way they like to see the response.
So if I can interject,
Go ahead.
that was one of the bases for having 8 sensitivities on the new Pro X. I've actually had that question a couple of times on Facebook. The reason for the amount of sensitivities is so every doctor is going to have their own style of scoping. So you can use your own sensitivity, whereas you might like a 4 or 5, I might like a 1-2, which is very similar to the older porcelain scope. The 2s and 3s are going to be closer to that, whereas the 4 and 5s, as I think you had mentioned, are closer to our high sensitivity now. And then we even have 6, 7, and 8 for somebody who wants it extremely sensitive. So we really tried to bring that back. But go ahead, Don. I apologize.
No,
there's another thing on that digital scope that I like, which is you can actually press a button and then it graphs. You kind of see a graph of the reading, which is great because if you're using an analog Nervascope, your people don't see what you're seeing. And so, you know, this allows you to see a graph. If you want to show that, Gab? Yeah, so see, this is great because now you could show the person after you scope them, like, hey, this is what your graph looks like. There you go. That's amazing.
And it will stay on the screen for you to be able to say, here's your break, here's your subluxation, here's our problem area. And then to clear it, you just start a new graph and then you're good. But it's got the science behind why they have their issue versus them just taking you at your word. You can actually show them, hey, here's our issue. And you can do the pre and post adjustment to say, hey, here it's gone, here it's not, or here it is, here it's gone. And they can say, wow, that's great. And so I fixed you.
That's amazing. And also on that Pro X, literally when I was there at the factory, we slammed it on the ground to see if it broke or anything, and nothing. It was like, it's super solid, you know, and sometimes that can become an issue if you drop your scope. But with the digital, nothing. We literally threw it on the ground a bunch of times and nothing broke on it. So that's a great new feature on that scope. And have you seen in the last few years more interest from chiropractic in buying the Nervascope? Do you have more sales? Is there much more interest or less interest? Let's say in the past 2 to 3 years.
That's a hard question because we're seeing much larger sales internationally. As far as the US goes, I'd say it's probably steady. I don't think it's been more or less per se.
Increase,
yeah, maybe, but as I said, the international sales have increased,
skyrocketed, which is fantastic. But
yeah, and of course, that's hopefully what we'll be able to help with that with your help is getting them to know how to use it, because we find, I'm not going to say a lot, but more than I'd like to see, people buy it and they really don't know how to use it. they understand
The science
the
behind it.
idea of it. No, they understand the idea.
Yeah.
They don't understand the science
True.
necessarily, but they do understand the idea, and they're taught the basics. Some schools teach better than others. I mean, it's not not something you can just say, oh, you come out of school and boy, I can do this. I can take x-rays. I can do this. You can't. I mean, you can work on it. It's kind of like going to college. You go to college, you get taught how to learn,
Exactly.
but you have no practical experience yet.
Exactly.
That's what you need to learn, and that's what seminars can help with.
Yeah.
And that's what experienced doctors can help with.
Exactly.
Totally. And it's key because, you know, for years, and in school, I went to a lot of seminars where I learned the Nervascope. I learned other things like other instruments and stuff. But when I got in practice, I decided to start without an instrument. And so for years, even though I thought I had good skills, it didn't give me a confidence level that I really knew where a subluxation was, and so that changes the entire game of you in practice. And so, you know, when someone joins our team, for example, they cannot even come to our training unless they have a Nervascope. That's our rule, because we believe so much in your product and what it does for our practices and how it allows us, you know, our whole work is to find and detect and correct subluxation. So if I can do that at a higher level with more confidence, everyone wins, especially the client, who is our main concern.
Exactly.
You know, so I'm super grateful. And the thing that I realize as a chiropractor, it really does come down to details, because, you know, when I teach new chiropractors, they're so concerned about seeing the breaks, but if your technique is not correct, you're not going to see the break. So what we focus on in the beginning is really to refine your technique, because it is really about the details. You know, and that also, I think, is what makes the difference between a great instrument and something that's mediocre. Maybe it looks the same on the outside, and maybe it has some nice graph and stuff, but there's one minor detail in the science behind this. It doesn't even matter.
Exactly.
You know, and that's why personally I have so much confidence using your instrument, because you have a trajectory of so many years in the profession. Mm-hmm. You know, with thousands of people that have utilized the instrument. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, it's funny because I always kid people about saying we're the Kleenex of chiropractic, because, you know, everyone calls it scoping. Whether it's our instrument or someone else's, they're scoping.
Exactly. Great point.
That's, you know, it's just one of those funny things that happen. I mean, we've been doing it for so long. It's just, and, you know, when we do it because we want to, you know, this is not, EDL's major source of income is not chiropractic, which is funny. We're basically an industrial company, and but this has always been where our heart has lied, and we like the product, we like the chiropractors, and we want to keep things going. And it's one of the reasons why it's so hard for us when we get an old scope in that is unrepairable, and we, you know, it kills us, because it's, in some cases, it's not that it can't be repaired, it's the fact that it doesn't pay to repair it. And that's the hardest part, because telling a guy, a chiropractor, that his scope is not repairable, and yet they're in love with it. I mean, they've used it for 20 years or 30 years or 40 years. I mean, we get in scopes that are sometimes 50, 60 years old.
And why is that? Because you can't get the proper parts to repair, like something that's...
They don't exist.
The parts don't exist.
So, as you saw, we have our complete machine room. We have a complete machine room. So we can make them. We can make certain things to do the repairs. However, if we can't buy it from somebody who's produced it, it's going to be a lot more money if we have to make it. I mean, so that's part of the issue. The other issue is that they're not readily available. So even some of the material that we used to make some of the components with is virtually impossible to find. So when we do finally find it, it is so exorbitantly high that it's like, okay, is it even worth it to buy it? Then you can't just have any technician work on it because you're rebuilding that meter from scratch. So we have a handful of people who can actually touch that scope, and not that we don't trust our other technicians, but they don't have the experience. We trust everyone, but I would rather it go to somebody who's been doing it for 10, 15 years rather than one of the employees who's only been here 3 or 4 years and might not understand. They've never worked on that style meter. Doesn't mean they are not wonderful and they can't do it. I don't want that person to, because what if it does make it worse? So we have to give it to our more experienced technicians, and they're rebuilding it from ground up. That means it might take 8 or 9 hours to fix that scope. Well, when you're looking at 8 or 9 hours just to rebuild the coil of that scope, you're now looking at a $2,000 to $2,500 repair. Well, a new scope is $900. So at what point do we, because we don't want a customer to feel like we're taking advantage of them, because that's not what it is. It's, I wish we were making that on it, but you know, it's
behind it, right? So what are some of the challenges you both see moving forward with the instrument in terms of your end, like, you know, getting materials? What challenges do you have to produce quality instruments for the future?
Well, Don, I'll let him answer, but I'd like to throw in, I don't know if you remember, but I had told you we do our own plastics injection molding. We have our own machine room. We've kind of taken that away with our ETS 9 and ETS, even the 8s and 7s, because we do virtually everything in-house, meaning I don't have to worry about, unless they stop selling plastic, because we don't make the raw plastic.
Right.
So unless we can't get plastic anymore, we now don't really have to worry about that. We may still have an issue finding a spring, but again, we can make that spring. So I'm not too concerned, but Don, what do you?
Well, the biggest concern is the fact that with the meters in particular, there were only a couple of companies that make a reliable meter today.
Wow. And you're talking about the meter, right?
Right. The meter that's in that instrument. If they go out of business, I'm not sure where that would go in the future, because we'd have to determine
This would then be the future.
Right. I mean,
which is why
we used to make with the old Nervascopes, we used to make the meters by salvaging old meters and taking them apart, rebuilding them, and making them do what we needed them to do, because the companies that make the meters couldn't make them sensitive enough for us. Now, being that we're using electronics now, we can use a meter that wouldn't work as an old scope, but it would work as the new scopes, and that works okay. But my concern is in 20 years where the world is going to be. The world is not going towards labor products like this. I mean, meters are very labor intensive. They're worked on by hand. They're not machine made. So I don't know where the future is going to lie with that. As I said, digital is, and that's why we came out with the Pro X, because we eliminate the biggest potential problem that we've got. When we ship a Nervascope, the odds are, if it's going to get damaged, it's going to be the meter that gets damaged. And with the Pro X, we've eliminated that potential. So we should see a severe reduction in any problems as meters are shipped out and people are buying them, especially with international shipments, because it's a more rugged system.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's amazing. It blows my mind to know like what goes behind this. Like, you think, you know, if when I went to the factory, I started to realize what's behind. It's like, what's behind a chiropractic adjustment? It's, you know, people say, oh, I'm here a couple minutes, but okay, well, I went to school for all these years and I studied all these years. I went to thousands of seminars. It's the same kind of thing. You know, a lot more goes into making this. And as you said, they're made by hand. So it's not just like it's some factory line and they're just, right. It's a lot of details. And that's, I guess, what makes it so special as well, right?
Yeah. So in general, I see good things in the future. I think that, you know, there's a lot of improvements that we are still making on products. You know, as as you had mentioned with the in the front ends where we've had a change in the plastics over the years.
Mhm.
The plastics aren't as rugged as we used to have. I mean, everything's changed. Probably in the last 20 years, a lot has changed in manufacturing.
But especially the
And-
last 2 or 3
Right,
years.
but the last 2 or 3 years have been
quality of
really hard
materials.
because materials aren't the same as they used to be. And so we're actually, this is as good a place as any to announce a new change that we're making, which is the fact that the Nervascope, the ETS9, is going to be made in the porcelain style again. Now, not, it'll still use a battery. I mean, I wish I could tell everyone that
No
we were
electronics.
able to do it without electronics, but we looked at it, we tried. It would be so outrageously expensive. It's just not, it's
It
just
wasn't
not
beneficial. It
worth
really
it.
wasn't.
But that's a great step. That's a great step. I know a lot of people love those, and
right. But we will be going back to that porcelain style shape and style and look. And it eliminates a lot of the problems that we've had over the last few years with the plastic problems.
great.
Not staying out or
Right.
in or
And where we've had
whatnot.
to make adaptations to make them work the way they should work.
Great.
You
And
know.
I want to go into one other thing. So that's all. That's amazing. And you're talking about maybe in the future having the ability for the digital to connect to a computer. Is that something?
Yes.
Like,
That is
what's the vision there? What's the vision there?
But that is already in the works. We have already started that project. We just wanted to finish the original Pro X first before we came out with that. So essentially, our circuit board's got Bluetooth, just so it'll Bluetooth to any computer. It will Bluetooth, and of course, you can
It'll
display
be
it on a
Bluetooth.
huge monitor.
It'll also be able to connect to a hand phone,
To a
you know, a
cell phone.
smartphone.
Okay.
We'll have an app, and this way, even now, I don't know that we've ironed this out yet, but possibly even a real time as the doctor is gliding, the patient can see it on the screen, so they can see right there is my subluxation, and of course they'll see the graph at the end of it. as well.
That would be, as a utilizer, will be amazing. For example, if you're sitting there and I have a TV in front of you and you're like watching it in real time, that would be tremendous. Wow.
So we working on that. So, and that I don't know that would be much more than probably maybe the end of this year. Maybe
I think
we're
it
on
is
track
doable.
for the
Yes,
end
we're-
of this year. But
Great. So I first of all, when I went to see them, I mean, you two are some of the friendliest people. I feel like we're family now. I really am grateful for you. Had a great visit. Can't wait to come back in March. So if you want to sign up for the seminar in March, I'm going to go through every mistake I ever made with the Nervascope, all the things I learned over the last 15, 16 years. I've taught hundreds of chiropractors. So I feel like I really have this mastered. And I'm a freak about details with the Nervascope. So I am just going to go through all my experience. We're going to have tons of hands-on. There's some parties there, like a barbecue, a breakfast. So there's a lot of great stuff. Tour the factory. And also, Gabby will announce later, there's some special things if you bring your Nervascope to be fixed, or so we'll be announcing that. Just contact me or send an email to EDL and we'll get you signed up.
perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for this.
Thank you both. Thank you both so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Have a great day. Have a great day. Everyone watching my channel, thank you for sharing. Thank you for putting likes. And any comments, questions, please send them to me. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.